everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang.
I concur with the fact that that's a possibility.
So you are,
possible.
you, I think, have said on a platform that you were a gunsmith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for how many years?
Many, many years.
For many years.
Mm-hmm.
You also said that you were an Army sniper.
I wasn't a sniper in the Army.
Okay.
And I never said that.
Sorry, your wife tweeted that you were an Army sniper.
Yeah, I don't know. Like 15 years ago, she said something.
Does it
She
change
said that
15 years later?
She said that it was colloquial. So
Army sniper is a colloquial term?
Yeah, I was never an Army sniper.
Okay. What did you do in the Army? Did you teach this? Then I corrected it and said you taught rifles in the Army?
No, I didn't teach rifle. No, I taught rifles as a private citizen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was an NRA instructor for many, many, many years alongside my gun shop.
As with your expertise, when she gave testimony on the stand, Samantha Carner, that there was dust and there was debris that was found in the gun barrel.
Yep.
And then when we had the person who, and this was, I believe, Caitlin Oliver, who explained painfully about the DNA, the prints.
Well, let's start with a point at a time.
I'm not done. You said something, so I'm going to finish my thought, right?
You don't want to do a point at a time?
No, well, sure. If you want to respond to,
Well,
I want you to respond to 2 points. I want you to start with 2 points.
Okay.
Dust and debris in the gun barrel.
Yeah.
Secondly, the fact that there were 5 sets of prints, 5+ actually by the end of the testimony, 5 sets of prints for which we already had the woman who worked for the FBI forensics testify that above 2 prints, if you're taking a sample, it's no longer a science, right? She testified that when they took the sample of what was on the trigger, they saw 5+ prints, and among those 5+ prints, Tyler Robinson's was the most degraded. So I would like you to explain how Tyler Robinson's prints could be the most degraded when she said, actually, you could have DNA on something that you've touched, you could have DNA on something that you've never touched, and to get DNA degradation, they've looked at pieces, items 20, 40 years on that don't have degradation. Yet Tyler Robinson's prints, amongst 5+ other prints, were the most degraded on that weapon.
Yeah. So let's get into all 3 of the claims. First, with debris. When it comes to debris, firing a rifle doesn't always blow the debris out of the barrel.
Okay. You think there could be debris and dust.
Yeah.
He just fired the weapon.
Sure.
Okay.
Not only that, he left it in a forest. Now, I don't know if you agree with me, but if you leave a rifle in a wooded area, it's also possible that debris could get in that way. But I'm not even sure that that's what
they found. Didn't they find a weapon like the same day? It didn't take them long to find a weapon. They even found the shooter no, they found the shooter 33 hours after the shot was fired. So the next day.
the case is. I think it's far more likely that you fired the shot, it just didn't blow all the debris out, and it often doesn't. You'll find this if you take Grandpappy's dirty rifle, and it's all dusty inside the bore, and you go fire it. You'll often look down the bore, and there's still dust.
Okay.
Happens all the time.
Okay, and the prints?
Yeah, so the prints we don't know all of the details on just yet.
We do. It was excruciatingly long testimony on the prints.
We don't, because they haven't gone to trial, so we don't know on the print front. But Tyler Robinson's DNA was on there. You made the claim that Lance Twig's DNA was on there, and it was not.
Well, when she gave the testimony, no. Hold on. First, let's go to your first point, because that's wrong. We can get a fact check on that. What do you mean we don't know until it goes to trial about the degraded prints? She testified, and this is the person who took the prints.
Yes, but the problem is that inside of this particular testimony, you agree with me that there's going to be much more of the DNA analysis during the trial, right?
But you also would agree that her fact is not going to change, that among the prints, his was the most degraded. So I'm asking you to address that. How could that be possible?
Let's give it, let's just grant this for a second as a possibility that his fingerprints were degraded.
It's not a possibility. It's a fact. The person who took it.
I'm just granting it for the sake of argument.
You should grant it because it's a fact that she presented.
So now it's granted. So what?
What do you mean? So what?
Yeah. So what? What does that mean?
Hey, when you don't, when you ain't got nothing to come back on, you just be like, so the prints were degraded. So what? What is it? Hey, shout out to Dr. Awning or droning in the scenery. Shout out to droning in the scenery. He can have speculation, but she can't speculate. I think one thing is that we see through this whole debate. There's something else that comes up. Let's talk about this. Let's talk. I'm gonna show y'all this real
I
quick.
think a lot of people miss in this debate, which is Andrew Wilson actually put in contract that Candace Owens cannot ask him any questions. You don't have to take my word for it. See it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
can I
yeah.
ask a question? I know it's been, or like, can I ask a question? Or are we
Not
just
really. I'm just gonna.
Okay.
We're gonna hold to the actual contract itself.
the contract does not say that you are allowed to question me without me being able to respond to you
I've never said you can't
or have
respond.
a conversation.
You've been able to respond to every question I've asked you.
Let's have it your way. I want it to look like
still happy
we've
to have
done
the
everything
debate.
Andrew wanted to so that people can fairly assess the situation. So you have it your way. I
Totally
will not
fine.
ask a question.
Totally fair with me.
Are you good with her?
So technically, he paid her $300,000 so he can control the conversation without her asking her questions. And because we know Candace will probably take over if in which she was able to get control of this conversation. Candace handled herself really well, and I want to finish this one, and I want to touch on another point that's later on in the video. Then we're gonna get back to the actual debate.
For asking a question or
He
no?
said no.
Love how Candace Owens isn't even the one that made this be known. She was like, you know what, have whatever stipulations you want about our debate. I don't even care. I want to make sure there's no wiggle room for excuses later on in the future and for you to be able to use a victim card. So you don't want me to ask you any questions? You got it. He apparently also requested that Candace not show or mention any of the old embarrassing debates that he's had in the past. And Candace said, no problem. I have no interest in making it personal. I just want to stick to the facts surrounding the case. And she stuck to that. However, Andrew seemed to be more focused on the things that Candace has said and trying to corner into making a statement. Almost as if his priority was more so getting Candace to say something on record that TPUSA can use later down the road. And even though they both had agreed on talking points about the things that they want to cover in this debate, Andrew Wilson was still able to get away with being disingenuous and bringing up out-of-context clips from Candace Owens' show. She called it out, though, but Candace Owens did not show any of the unfavorable clips of Andrew Wilson. She would have had plenty to choose from. If you watched closely, then you'll know that the first half of that debate was her just being genuinely trying to have a debate. And the second half was just her spanking him for fun. So...
You don't actually care about this case. You're not following
Is that
the case.
it? That's the
Yeah.
question. You're
Yeah,
just not
but
following it
seems,
enough.
It seems pretty, like, if you're going to engage and you're going to say the evidence is overwhelming that Tyler Robinson is guilty, I just think that you should, like,
All right.
can you tell me one
Then let's do the
charge
counter.
that he's...
You can really hang on. This is a great gotcha.
No. You just got to ask me, play
Yeah.
clips out of context,
Yeah.
put me in the hot seat, so please just answer the
This
question.
is fair.
Can
Name
you
all
name,
seven
can,
since you've been following the case.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead.
You name one.
Yeah, you named all seven.
I'm happy to do that, but can you name one?
I think he's been charged with murder.
That's actually incorrect.
Okay, great. Now name all seven.
He doesn't even... This is like...
Name all seven.
And I
Can you
I think
name all seven?
I can.
Then do it.
Sure, you don't have to
Do
put
it. No, do it. I'll count them. Go ahead.
You don't have to put
Yeah.
your fingers up. I
Okay,
can
hang
do
on.
that.
Name them.
He's controlling it. See, he did this to have control, and now he's controlling it like a toddler, like somebody in elementary school. Knock this stick off my shoulder. Knock it up so you can start a fight. If you want to do something, knock this stick off my shoulder.
Yeah, sure.
Name 'em.
The first charge is aggravated murder because that's what carries
Okay.
a death
So
sentence in the
murder.
state of Utah. No,
Next.
that's not. That is literally not murder.
Okay.
And so
Next.
just for people, I don't have to do it in a time limit. There's nothing going on. And just to explain to people the difference of why that really matters and shows that he doesn't actually care about this at all is because aggravated murder,
He not even
it's
listening.
narrowly defined,
Just
and because
avoiding
it
the
carries
question.
a death sentence. I'm going to answer the question.
Okay,
You're
I'm
just going to
waiting.
recognize that your strategy of thinking that people are intimidated when you try to put a time constraint doesn't work, and you'll be better the next time you debate
I got
someone.
it. I got it. Give me the other ones.
The more you cut me off, the longer I'll take. Do you want to just wait for me to finish of why that's a big difference so that
No,
people
I just
don't walk
want
away?
you to list the charges.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. You just don't get to pretend that there's a time constraint for me to do that.
Well, how long does it take you to list seven charges?
Because I'm speaking. You just got to.
It sounds like you're just delaying it because you don't know them.
I know all seven of them,
Then
and I'm
tell
going to
me
say
them.
again because you're going to get embarrassed. You don't have to rush this. I'm also showing an example of a very flawed debate strategy. I
Okay,
actually
well,
am
I
under
got
no
one.
time constraint.
I got one.
Great. The second charge is the felony discharge of a weapon. The next two charges are for obstruction of justice.
Okay.
The next two charges are for witness tampering. And the
What's
final.
the specific charges, though?
That is them. Obstruction of justice,
Both of
obstruction
those?
of justice, witness tampering, witness tampering.
Okay, and there's no other specifics to them.
Well, I can tell you why he's being
No,
charged
no,
with
no.
it.
Just the charges, and then 7.
Yeah, see, the bad thing is when you try to be an a-hole and it doesn't work.
What's the 7th?
The last charge is violence in front of a minor.
Damn.
I don't actually care about this case. You're not-
She ate him down. Sis, man, this is why I love Candace. You know what? Listen, there was a time that Candace Owens first came out and was like, all black people was like, oh, who is this bleached, blonde, bad built, butch body? They didn't like Candace Owens. And I was like, I started to listen to her, and I was like, I mean, she not wrong, but her delivery needs some touching up. She had a lot to say. She was critical about the Democratic Party and black people voting for the Democratic Party. One thing, and she married a white man and has kids by a white man, but that's one thing she never backtracked on, was being a black woman. So, you know, other than that, a lot of people, a lot of black people, a lot of Democrats didn't like her, but I was like, you know, I give her a chance. Then I seen her on a couple shows like The Breakfast Club. She was on with Charlamagne the God. They did a little interview and stuff like that. And that's when I really got to know who Candace was. And I was like, well, she's not that bad. She's not that bad. Again, it's not for everybody. I'm not going to tell you to like her or whatever. But I just think she's a pretty smart woman. She's on point with her stuff. And she checks her facts, and she don't just spit random stuff for no reason. She'll go and do her research. So that's why you should understand, don't be afraid to listen to other people. But although, you know, once she got off that MAGA train, I was like, oh, we all in. Because I don't care if you're Republican. I mean, I don't care if you're a MAGA, but I would question your judgment by just being a part of MAGA. I would question your judgment, seriously. Because why is gas $3.57 in Oklahoma City? Okay. MAGA. But Candace is that woman, man. Oh, one thing Charlamagne the God told her, you know, when she was being real radical, she was being real radical at one point. Charlamagne the God said, I think you better reel it back in, because you could say or do something that'll ruin your career. She reeled it back in, and that's when you see the real change in Candace.
It proves that if his prints were the most degraded amongst 5 of them, you're going to have to explain how that's possible if he's the one that recently fired the weapon.
Yeah, so wait a second. You're saying that it's an impossibility that if his fingerprints are the most degraded,
I'm telling you
if
to
that's the
explain it.
case.
You're the gunsmith.
Well,
so
wait a
explain
second. How would a gunsmith give an analysis on fingerprints or DNA? Do you think that I work in a DNA laboratory
So
with
your
fingerprints?
answer is I don't know. You can just say you don't know.
But
you
I
don't
did.
have to.
But I did.
No, you said so what? So
Yeah,
say
so-
I don't know. I
but what
actually
would
don't
that-
have an
what would
explanation
that
for that,
prove,
Candace.
though, is my question.
Well, I think that what it would prove is that it is a more viable theory that people who had stronger prints on the gun may have used it more recently.
Did they tell?
So just by not knowing, and then she's supposed to expect that you don't know, and she brought it out of him to make him admit that he didn't know, which further goes back to the point of the video clip we just seen. It says, you really don't even know what's going on. You're just talking. You came up here to debate to get you some clout. You got the money, so you want the clout.
Did they say who else had fingerprints on the gun?
They named Matt Robinson explicitly.
Okay.
And this was a part of the testimony where she was speaking about how they got samples of elimination samples from the home of Amber Robinson, Matt Robinson, and Lance Twiggs. Those were the 3 names they named.
So are you saying that Twiggs
Would you like me to
fingerprints-
finish my statement?
I just want to make sure I'm clarifying.
I'm trying to finish the answer, but it can't be clarified until the answer comes out of my mouth.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
This was a portion of her testimony where she was explaining how they got elimination samples from the home. And she named Matt Robinson, Amber Robinson, and Lance Twiggs as the elimination samples that she was using. And so she explicitly said, some of them, so we can assume 2 out of the 3, their prints were found on the gun. She explicitly named Matt Robinson as someone who had prints on the gun, and then said there were 5 people that they had taken that sample from. And again, what's also relevant here is the earlier testimony, which came from the FBI forensics analyst, I believe it was on day 2, where she said that when you're using those mixtures and those samples and you get up to 5+, it's really hard to make any sort of a determination. So both of those things are relevant. If you can't explain why his prints are the most degraded and you're saying he is the shooter, it's not really a so what. It's an open-ended question that people have a right to pursue. It's not a conspiracy. It's actually proof of my claim that there is evidence that he was set up as a patsy.
That wouldn't prove anything about him being a patsy.
It said it's evidence to support the claim that he could have been set up as a patsy.
So this is why I said earlier, so what? Because even if it's the case, this doesn't have an explanation for it yet. That doesn't actually give
That's not why he said so what. He said so what because he wanted to like somehow degrade and disapprove her answer. And that's all he said. He just said, "Oh, I said so what because of this. It doesn't even matter." Shut up. This dude is a goofy. He paid $300,000 for this.
you any evidence in your corner for Tyler Robinson being a patsy?
That's like me paying the KKK to let me run through they meeting naked. They about to put all type of burning crosses up my behind. I'm not. This dude is something silly. He's like the worst. Did y'all watch this? Did y'all watch this in full? Anybody watch this in full?
Okay,
Hang on. I didn't cut you off. Right? You would need to actually explain how this would demonstrate Tyler Robinson. This is tied into Robinson being a patsy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you claiming that these fingerprints were Lance Twiggs or that he had any DNA there?
I'm saying that it could be Matt Robinson, it could be Amber Robinson. That sort of information is going to come out during the trial.
How would that tie into the idea that he's a patsy?
Yes,
though?
because if his is the most degraded prints and the information that I shared on my platform is true, that this gun was given to Tyler Robinson as an heirloom. I had conversation with members of the Robinson family, Twiggs family, both of them. You know, like I said, we're not just dreaming. And if we're having those conversations and they told me that gun was only given to Tyler Robinson because it was a family heirloom. Okay, so it was his grandfather's gun or great-grandfather's gun.
Okay.
I don't remember the difference. I don't remember which one it was. And so he got it because he's the firstborn. So, but he's not much of a shooter, is what I was told. And so he has this because he inherited it, essentially. So if I get something from my grandpa and I put it up on the shelf and I own this, you could see that could be.
How do we get to the patsy part?
You don't let me ever get to the end of the sentence. So how could we get to the patsy part
Okay,
if I can't get to the end of the sentence?
I'll wait patiently till we get to
so
the
that
patsy
could be a
part.
reasonable explanation as to why there was dust in the barrel, because he doesn't often shoot this weapon and he is indeed a fisher. And it could also be a reasonable explanation for why we have Matt Robinson's prints on this. Obviously, Lance Twiggs, even if he has prints on things, they live together. That doesn't really mean anything. But that could demonstrate that somebody took his weapon and put it somewhere. His prints are the most degraded. Somebody else's prints, there's more presence of somebody else's prints, and that could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into various places.
But it also could demonstrate nothing. So the problem that you have here is that this is pure conjecture.
No,
this is not evidence that Tyler Robinson is a patsy. It's only evidence that you have conjectured up that, if it's the case that these are the more degraded prints, then therefore that means must be patsy because dad's fingerprints on gun.
I didn't say must be patsy.
Describe how this actually links in to Robinson being a patsy.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. So I'm gonna.
Isn't that how every investigation happens? They search for clues and speculate what could have happened, and then they come to a conclusion. And then once they find a conclusion and they find the suspect, then they can kind of go into what exactly happened. That's how that works. That's how an investigation works. You don't just you chase facts and you have a certain protocol that you do to get the facts. But if you don't know, you kind of have to assume the worst.
going to move on from that. But to just go back to your point about this is not evidence, you can't make that claim because the entire basis for why you think that there's evidence for Tyler Robinson being the person that took the shot is based off of a hearing under Utah 1102 rules, meaning that they are doing the exact same thing that I am doing. This is the state. You said you're here to represent the state. Well, did you watch the preliminary
no, I
hearing?
didn't say I was here to represent the state.
The state's position you think is strong and convincing.
What
okay?
I'm here to do is represent my own opinion,
You
which
said
is
in
that
your opening
based
statement-
based on the evidence presented so far by the state.
The state has
that I find it
presented
convincing.
evidence under Utah's 1102 rule.
But this doesn't demonstrate any patsy
No, that's very
behavior.
important because that rule is hearsay. So you can't say at the same time,
Great.
Candace, you're not allowed to. And what that means under the Utah rule, which I'm sure you know, because I'm sure you watched the preliminary hearing and yourself understand what that means, is that the entire hearing was hearsay. It means none of that information that was presented is going to be allowed. The majority of it, the overwhelming majority of it is not going to be allowed at the trial. They're allowed to present when it's just a probative hearing.
I don't think all the evidence that was put in was hearsay.
Okay, you didn't watch this case.
But not only that,
no. This is a huge point. This is crazy that you don't know
we can call for a
this.
fact check if
yes,
all the evidence
we need
was
more than a
put
fact
in.
check. This was every single
The
day.
team in the back is
Utah
actually
Rule
saying
1102.
They want to go there. So they said there's a medical examiner's explanation of the shooting that's in the back. Rob, if you want to pull it up, and then Candace, if anybody from your team wants to pull something up, no problem as well. But they're requesting it. If you guys got it, pull it up so we can show it. And in the interim, is that it?
Yeah. So I'll read this.
Just what are we looking at, just so we know?
Yeah. So this says the bullet, or at least part of it, sequentially perforated.
You see how he just ignored her? What a douche.
If you guys got it, pull it up so we can show it. And in the interim, is that it?
Yeah. So I'll read this.
Just what are we looking at, just so we know?
Yeah, so this says the bullet, or at least part of it, sequentially perforated the interior left of Mr. Kirk's neck, strap muscles of the left side of the neck. This is a summary, by the way. Left common cartoid on the left internal external jugular veins. The bullet also obliterated the left side C27 vertebrae, transacted the cervical spinal cord. Medical examiner observed a significant portion of Kirk's cervical spinal cord was traumatically absent. Mr. Kirk suffered from other severe injuries, including bilateral, apical, and posterior intercausal hemorrhages, pulmonary, apical hemorrhages, multiple disruptions to the thyroid, et cetera, et cetera. So the summary of the examination is that he was shot.
Okay.
That was what they were pulling that up for.
Okay, and I'm not disputing that he could have been hit with a projectile. We're not disputing that, so I don't know why this was brought up as a fact check. Could you bring up 1102 Utah rule? Because this is an unbelievable point that you're making by saying that I am not allowed to infer off of evidence.
You can infer. I'm trying to follow the inference.
But your entire reason, like you asserted that you believe there's overwhelming evidence on the basis of what we saw in the preliminary hearing. The entire preliminary hearing was hearsay.
Yeah, I'm fine with your inferences.
No, you just literally said I couldn't do that. Yes, I can.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying from your inference, how do we get to Patsy?
This is how you got to Shooter. The Tyler Robinson did it.
No,
the same way that
I
you
didn't
got to
get
Tyler
to Shooter
Robinson.
from that.
Yes, you did. You again, this is something important, so we should pull up a fact check about what the 1102 Utah, and under their constitution, for the sake of a preliminary hearing, they do not have to have hard evidence. They don't have to put people on the trial, swear them in.
Have to.
But no, that's why the entire hearing was basically hearsay. Officer Bagley was
not
saying,
all of it, like I said.
the overwhelming majority.
Again, no dispute.
Outside of the one that you don't want to give. Please don't cut me off.
But your dispute.
Outside of that is what's in dispute. It means that your entire brand of saying you don't have evidence, falls apart when the entire preliminary hearing is based off of hearsay. In fact, Lance's testimony before they had about an hour debate. Actually, maybe it was more than an hour debate before he sat, and they said this is not going to be allowed. You wouldn't even be allowed to do this. We'd be able to cross-examine him. The questions that they're asking Lance are all leading. And what did he say? Well, I'm the magistrate under Utah Constitution. 1102. It is my job to allow all of this so we can see if the state has enough here that we can then move to a trial, which will then. They would not allow this stuff. They would say we get to cross-examine Lance. Lance
But
just
you're
can't
arguing
willy-nilly
things
say.
I'm not disputing.
But the entire substance of your argument is that people can't infer off of evidence.
No,
That's what you're saying
it's
to
not.
me. When you say Candace,
Here,
you
I'll
can't
give you
talk
the
about the degraded
argument
prince, which is a
now.
fact.
Yeah, I'm not
and then
saying
infer
that.
off of that
Didn't say that.
Tyler could have been a patsy.
You're just literally making stuff up. So here's what the position is. I'm asking this.
No, Candace doesn't make stuff up. Look. Here's what Candace does. Okay, there's one dot. I gotta stay in the screen because there's one dot over here. The dot is the crime. There's this person that's over here. Okay, so you got this person over here, the dot, the crime, the person who you suspected to do the crime. Candace looks at all the evidence, tries to find as much evidence as she can possible, things related to these people, incite people. And so the dots are just like this, parallel to each other. But she might have to go up and down, around, backtrack just to get to that. So that's why they say it's a conspiracy, because she's talking about Israel, Masons, the hug that happened on the tarmac, what time the hug happened, where was Charlie Kirk's body when his wife was in the air. And just so happened that the CEO of Turning Point USA was coming in also from a different place. And a lot of times they don't actually go to these places, but for some reason they were going to show up that day. She connected all those dots, but it wasn't just straightforward. It was like this. Like when she was first getting on Erica Kirk, it was a world of joy watching her devour Erica Kirk.
I'm saying that I think you. Let's pull that up. Let's pull that up. I am doing exactly what the state did. I am looking at a piece of evidence, and I am saying.
But you're not showing me how you get there.
Can you describe to the audience what Rule 1102
so this,
means?
just so everybody who's watching this at home understands what I am saying, even if he doesn't. What Andrew is arguing is that I don't have the right to extrapolate from a fact like
just making it up. Just purely making it up. I'm asking based on
Andrew.
Based on
can
your
I show my
inference.
evidence? You just showed yours. Reliable hearsay.
You'll get a chance.
Reliable hearsay in criminal preliminary examinations. The entire preliminary hearing that you just saw was on the basis of reliable hearsay. And what that means essentially is the people who are making the statements can just say, Patrick told me that he did this on Monday. Patrick's not here. And that is, they can allow that into the hearing. That's just because it's just meant to be probative. And so it's the state saying, here's what we have inferred. So you are allowed to take a piece of evidence and then you are allowed to infer off of that evidence. Okay. Case in point, that's a demonstration that's a demonstration of what I just did. I said the prints were the most degraded off of Tyler Robinson. And from that, what I am inferring is that it's plausible that Tyler Robinson was set up.
That doesn't, okay? That's the point in contention.
That's not a point in contention. That's
the point in contention.
It's not a point in contention. If you're saying it's a point,
it is the point in contention.
It's not the point in contention. I'm telling you that was what the entire hearing allowed for. So the evidence that he is describing,
we're asking you
that he is using to argue his case is all based on inference, not fact.
Great.
Inference, not fact. So what they are inferring off.
He's wanting her to give her this. That's when that lady said that it seems like he's trying to get her to say something so that Turning Point USA can use it in a lawsuit later. But in all actuality, she's telling them exactly what it is. And she'd rather stick to the facts versus saying her true feelings. Because if she said her true feelings that may not align with what's going on, then that will put her in a situation where now she's being sued for defamation. But instead, she's using factual information that you can look up and that she can find that determines how she feels about the Charlie Kirk situation.
Of the facts.
So again, we're going to take this, and I'm just going to even grant it because it's irrelevant. I'm asking how you get to the inference that even if you dispute that piece of evidence, that means patsy. I'm looking for the logical chain for how you get to that inference.
What I am telling you is it's the exact same way that when you tweeted, I think that this evidence is overwhelming. When they say that looks like Tyler Robinson's car, he drives a similar car, okay? They are inferring that that's Tyler
Can
Robinson.
you walk me through the inference
The
so that I
infer-
understand?
It's not a fact. It's not a fact. When you show a blurry image, which you kept citing that we
No,
have
I'm
images.
talking about your inference that the fingerprints, even if they're degraded, equals Patsy.
Bro,
How
he
do you
went
get
back.
that
He went back
I
two
didn't say
conversations
equals
later.
Patsy. I think it is enough evidence that it should be explored, which is exactly what this preliminary was in the
but
inverse.
That's not in dispute. What's in dispute is when you said, I'm using this as evidence that he could have been a Patsy. I'm asking, how do you get the inference to Patsy from that?
Because what I am saying is that it shows that somebody else had more DNA presence on that gun than Tyler Robinson did. So it is plausible, which is all they're doing. They're presenting plausibility based off of the facts, okay? It is plausible that somebody just took his gun and put it there. That's it.
Is there equally
That's how it works.
and is there equally 100 other plausible explanations?
I think that's the reason why most people are exploring when things don't make sense.
Got it.
So yes, at the beginning of that, this is how the court process works.
So
just so we're clear,
if
this
there's
is the
100 other
state's evidence,
plausible
and they're inferring.
explanations, then
He said, got it. Oh, like he just called her up. She just told you exactly what it is. He acting like he just won that section of the debate. Yeah, I got her to say what it really is. Anyway, this dude is goofy. We're going to come back tomorrow. And just let me know what y'all think about this in the comment section.
Everyday people.
Day and night. For some women, it can start working in as quick as 1 week.